Hey everybody, thought I'd do a little video on changing brakes or the front brake pads on a 2014 Chevy Sonic. Should be an easy project here, but should save you a lot of money. I ordered the parts from Rock Auto and I believe they were $25 or $30. If you do it before you need brand new rotors, that's all the cost you're going to have is the money for the pads themselves, and hopefully, unless something else breaks, obviously. But anyway, quick little tutorial. Should be quick, simple, and save you a lot of money if you go and do it yourself. Start off with, let's get the gasket. I've already set up. I've already set up the jack stands so that I have those available. And right now I'm looking for a couple of blocks so that the car doesn't go backwards down the slightly sloping driveway. So we're going to stick those behind the wheels. And right now I'm going to take my jack. This is a Harbor Freight 3-ton floor jack. I've had it for about 10 years now, and it's been a spectacular tool. Absolutely no failures whatsoever. Been really nice. So what I'm looking for is a point to jack the car up, and it looks like I'm going to have one right in here. There we go. And we're gonna get it. Anyway, you know the drill. Get the tire off the ground. One tip that you should know is that if you do not have hydraulic tools, or excuse me, a air tool, that you should probably loosen the lug nuts before you raise it off the ground. Otherwise, the tire tends to spin. I do have a pneumatic wrench, so it doesn't really matter to me. In fact, you can see I already have the 19mm socket ready to go on that. Off the ground it comes. Now I'm going to put a jack stand underneath there, and I'm going to lower it right down onto the jack stand. Got the car up on the jack stands, so that on the other side, do the same thing. It locked in the back, and now it's time to take the tires off. And I've got the compressor that's already charged with air. It'll probably come run down, and you'll hear a big noise in the background, but that's just the compressor recharging the air. Right now I've got my pneumatic wrench, and off they come. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier than a standard wrench, but it can be done with a standard wrench. Number 19 socket. Caliper, that's what we're looking for right here, and we're going to be opening up that caliper and switching it the rotors. This is the rotor part. This actually spins the compressor actually pushes it together, and that's what creates the stopping force and a lot of heat. Make sure that that's smooth, and then make sure there is very little minimal ridge along this edge. At some point, you'll need to have these things turned down by a shop, or you can just replace those for a fairly minimal amount nowadays. But that's what you're looking for the first time when you get inside here. The next part is you want to take off the caliper part. This is actually the caliper. There's a hydraulic line, so there's hydraulic fluid that comes from the brake reservoir upstairs, and that squeezes the pads against this surface. So that's what's going on, is we want to take this thing off and put new pads into the middle of it. What it's going to take is a 10 millimeter socket. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a 10 millimeter socket that goes right on that outer edge there and opens up. And that's what I'm going to be doing right this minute. So on it goes. Hit it a few oh, I'm going the wrong way. Oopsie. All right, let's turn it to open it instead of going the opposite direction. There we go. It doesn't take a whole lot to get those loose. So we're going to take that and we're going to unscrew it. And there's the bolt that comes out that holds that whole squeezing brake caliper together. And you'll notice that it's actually spinning right now. And we have one more underneath. So those two bolts hold that caliper together, and it kind of is a little bit loose, so that as the brakes wear, they actually self-adjust so that you can maintain a good stopping power throughout the life of your brake pads. All right, there we go. That comes off, and the brake pad, or the brake caliper, just kind of rock it back and forth, and eventually it comes out. And this right here is the actual piston that squeezes against these two pads. Now most people will take a hanger and hang it up. You don't want these calipers, they're pretty heavy. You don't want them going against or pulling on this rubber brake line. I usually just set them up here as long as I'm not going to be going away for any length of time. And the old pads get pulled out. Okay everybody, now we're going to be going with the replacement pads. When you order a set, I happen to have a set of Wagner QS's, again, that I got off of Rock Auto. I believe these are ceramics. I don't know really how to tell the difference, but these are the ones that I'm looking at. And these things are going to go right back into that spot. I want to make sure they fit properly. The next step is, if you have a set of brake stuff that includes hardware, you get brand new shiny slides on there also. So each side gets one of their own, and it's going. Okay. And the next step is that you want to take off these slides. If the hardware that you have comes with new ones, it's best to use the new ones. If it doesn't, if you lube them up and use the old, that's acceptable too. So see how that goes in on the bottom like that, and now the top slide comes and does exactly the same thing. They just get old and dirty, but they're stainless steel. If you don't have new hardware, they call it, you can reuse the old hardware without much trouble. Let me put them on right. It'll make it easier to put them on if you put them on in the correct orientation here. Okay, so the new slide hardware is on. And now what you need to do is we need to make sure that in fact the brake pads can actually slide. When it gets squeezed on by the piston, it needs to be able to not only move in as the piston pushes it in, but open up when you let go of the brakes. So what you do is you're going to put a little bit of Moly brake lube, and where they sit is down in this edges here. Too much is not a good thing, but just a little bit to make it slippery is what you're looking for. And just put that up in there. Now you've got the brake slides lubed up. And run your finger along and smooth it out a little bit. Whew, that actually has a strong smell. I didn't realize that. Okay. Well, and then the next part is you probably don't want to get a whole lot of grease onto your shiny new brake pads here. Now, what you'll see is that you've got a couple of ends, and those go into these slots. So I'm going to carefully slide that in there. I may have to go upside down here in order to check and make sure that there's nothing holding that. No, it went in by itself. How do you like that? Okay. And then the new one on this side is the same thing. You can see how this edge slides down into this groove, and then similar on the top. And that's it. So now we've got this set, and the big thing we do right now is we have to put the calipers back on there. But seeing as how, I don't know if you can take a look at this. If you look at it and you see how this piston is moved forward, well, that's because over the course of the wear of the old pads, the piston has had to be moved out like that. It's adjusted itself. So we need to get that piston back pushed inside of the cylinder. And we do that with either a fancy brake tool that you can buy at the auto parts store, or by a C-clamp. And the C-clamp goes right here. And as I see if you can get that, is like as I push in, you can see how that C-clamp is actually pushing back into the calipers. There we go. We just do it nice and slow so we don't damage anything. But we're going to push it all the way back in until it's at the end of its travel. Once we do that, we're set. Okay, and then the last step of actually working with the brakes right now is to take these two 10mm bolts and I'm going to reinstall this. So that comes in like that, and I put the top one in, and now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to have to push this little caliper bracket holder in just a little bit to clear the caliper itself, and now I have to line the holes up and tighten them up. And in we go. So let's do this, tighten this down to the official torque settings. And I do have a 3/8 inch torque wrench, and I'll get that before I lock it all together here. Okay, there's one. And two. Okay, we've got the brakes assembled. Everything is set to go, and I'll show you after I get the other side done. I'll go up top and make sure that the brake master cylinder is full, and I'll show you how to take care of that and make sure that too much brake fluid hasn't leaked out, or that just make sure that you have enough brake fluid in there. But other than that, all we need to do right now on this side is put the tire back on, and I will do that in a second. Okay, this is the final step in the process here. This is the brake master cylinder, and you can see the fluid in there, and you want to make sure that it's at between the minimum and maximum line on the filler, which we happen to be. So I'm going to put the cap back on. I'm going to get back in the car. I'm going to start it up, pump the brakes a couple times, check it one more time, and go for a quick test drive, and our brake job, our front brake job, will be completed.